Hello everyone, this is Vinay here from Learn Coding with Vinay. In this video, we are going to discuss date data type in MS SQL. Right, so we will go over all possible scenarios, all possible theories, and all possible examples. So this will be a little longer video, but I'll promise that it will be quite interesting and worth watching. So let's begin with the video. So what is a date data type? So we see there are SQL has various data types like integer, string, boolean, and date. And date is a very common data type that will be used in many places, right? So let's take an example of a date data type, right? So I have this table called contact. I have these few columns says ID, contact name, mobile, birth date. Here we have taken just date and created on when the contact was created, right? This is taken as date and time, right? And we have assigned default value to it is get date, right? Get date is actually current date and time, right? So let me go ahead and create this table. So the table is created, right? If I go ahead and see, we don't have anything over here, right? Now we'll put down few values. Now before we put down few values into that, we need to understand that database, every RDBMS will have their default date setting. So we'll have to pass the value in that manner only. For example, MS SQL, it will support these many formats: YYY, MMDD, MM hyphen DD hyphen YYY, then MM forward slash DD forward slash YYY, and YYY forward slash MM forward slash DD, right? So this depends on the installation also, and the configuration of your RDBMS. Here we have I have used the default configurations while installing MS SQL, right? And I am using MS SQL Express version, so it's a free one, right? So let's put down some data which uses one of these format, right? So here are four records. Here we have passing birth date, and here we are passing created on date and time. So basically it says that in my contact list I have added this guy Ankit Sharma on this date and time, and this is what it says. So let me insert this and see. So it goes four record inserted. Let me go ahead and run this now. So it has four record with the birth date and created on date, right? So we have a table where we have two date types. One is date only and second one is date and time only, right? Now let me put down one more record. Here I am not passing created on, just to give you an example of how does the default work. So if we don't pass created on date, and if we go ahead and run this, then what it will do, let's see. It says one record inserted, and if I go ahead and run this query, let's say, then this will have one record inserted. But look at the created date, created on date, it is the current date and time, right? It's the current date and time. Look at it over here, it's 4th of July 2025, 11:44 a.m. So this was just a minute before 11:43 a.m., right? So let's So this is how default work. If you don't pass the value, it will pick up the value from the table definition, which is, and there over there we have defined that the value of this is created on column is not passed, then I will take the get date, current date and time basically as its value, and that's what it did it over here, right? Now here we have taken two date data type, but let's understand some more data types also in uh, that is date only. So we in MS SQL we have date, date time 2, date time 2, time, date time offset, and small date time. Right. So this many data type of date we can use. Right. Now where should now which one we should use in which scenario? Right. So take an example of date, right? So if you have a database or a database table where you want to store birth date or wedding date, or someone's hire date, joining date, or invoice preparation date, right? Where you don't require time to be there, you just need date. Then in this scenario you should go with the date data type, only date. Right? And next one is date and time. Now obviously if you need date and time both, then you will have to use date time data type. Now date time data type data will look something like this, right? So YYY, MM, DD, then space, then HH, MM, SS, and then the milliseconds, right? And date data time has a lesser fraction of milliseconds available, which is 3 digit only, right? Which we can see over here, 187, right? So it says 187 milliseconds, right? Now the next one is, and date data time are good choice when you are making auditing column in your master, in your database where you have master data. So who created that record, who updated that record, if you want to do something like that, then date data time would be an ideal choice if time precision up to nanosecond is not required. But what if there is a, if you have a requirement where time stamp up to nanosecond is required, then we will have to use date and time to data type, right? And date and time to data will look like something like this, right? Where we have a higher precision of milliseconds. For example, over here we have 7 values, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, right? What do they indicate? So over here 189 is actually your millisecond, 591 is your microsecond, and 5 multiplied by 100, which is 500, is your nanoseconds, right? So here we have a higher level of precision. And so date and time too, what are the use cases? So in most of the transactions which involves money, right? Basically banking, finance domain, if you are working on banking or finance domain applications, then those database will have date column as date and time too, because they need exact date and time stamp, what happened, what, where, right? Now next one is time. Now time is, if you have, so not every time you need date and time, right? For example, if the certain activities are happening on a daily basis, they are routine activity, right? Let's say I go to office by 7:10 bus or train, right? Then I don't need a date to be stored there. I just need 7:10 time, right? So if that is the requirement, then you should go with the time data type, right? And these are the example of it, that your routine activities, train, maybe train schedule, bus schedule, right? And in, if you have worked already on IT industry and you have seen that there are certain job schedule in the in the night in IT industry, right? They run at a certain time and they stop at a certain time, right? And it is happening daily, then you don't need to store the date of it, you just need time. And next one is date time offset. Now this will discuss later on when we discuss about table, this table, right? The next one is small date time. Now small date time is actually a fix, it has a fixed range of 1900 0101 to 2079, you know. So there is a fixed pre start date and end date. So if your data falling under this range only, very well, then you should go for small date time, right? Otherwise you should avoid it. Otherwise date and time or date and time 2 should work for you, right? Now where this can be a useful case, so for example, if you want to have some historic data, that 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 historic data has not gone beyond this date range, then you can use it. For example, let's say I want to find out floppy disk cell data, right? So floppy was a popular uh, storage device that we used in my college, probably 2025, or I would say 30 years back, right? It was a very popular storage device used. So if you try to go, if you have maintained the sales data of this, now actually nobody buys floppy again, although it is available on Amazon and Flipkart, you can go ahead and buy it, but nobody buys it, right? Because the memory capacity of it was very less, I think 1.5 MB or something, right? So if you know that you have a history data that lies within this range only, then you can go for small date and time, right? Otherwise remaining data type, date and time should work for you, right? Now let's understand one more thing, that while we created the table, we took getDate. So this is a SQL predefined function that gives us the current date and time. Now it is the current date and time of the database server where it is installed, right? So this may give if you are living on some other countries which have a different time zone, this may give a time based on that country, right? So let's take few more examples that what all other predefined functions available that we can use in our project or we may need, right? So here are the few. So get date, this will give us the current date and time, and it the return time of it is date and time, so that's why it is giving us milliseconds up to 3 precision point, right? If I go ahead and run this sys date and time, then the return time of it is actually date and time 2, right? So it gives us more fraction of milliseconds, right? 7 basically, right? Now let's say let's move to next one, UTC date time, right? If I go ahead and run these two, right? So this is UTC date time and this is UTC date and time with higher precision. So what is UTC date and time, right? So it's a universal standard time. Now when you should use these data types, right? So let me take you over here in the Excel, right? So if you have, if you are working on an application that is solely used by a particular within the particular area or within the particular country where there is only one time zone, right? Then we should go by, we should use get date and system date time, right? But let's say if you are working on an application which is used widely across the world, many countries are using your application, or even if it is in within one country only, but that's a different time zone. For example, USA will have USA has actually different time zones like EST and PCT, if I am not wrong, right? Then Canada has different time zones, Russia has different time zones, right? So if you are supporting or if you are working in an application that is used by by the area that spans multiple time zone, then you should use UTC dates, not the normal get date, right? So let me go back to SSMS again. Now let me take this example, date and time offset. Now this returns, now this sys date and time offset function returns date and time offset data type, right? What is different between this and the other one? And so if you see, it gives us the date and time only, right? It gives us the date and time only, but it gives us the offset as well. Now what is this offset? So it says actually that I am this and this date, this date and this time, but I am ahead of 5 hours and 30 minutes from the UTC time. So if you see, this is the UTC time, current UTC time 06:23:08. If we add 5 hours 30 minutes to that, then it comes to 11 o'clock 53 minute and 08 second line, and that is the time what I have in my machine actually, right? So it is a local time, and at the same time it says how much it is either ahead or behind from the UTC time, right? So in this case, IST, Indian Standard Time, is actually 5 hours and 30 minutes ahead of the UTC time, right? So now I hope you will have fair idea about what all data types we have, and what all default function we can use and in which scenario, right? Now let's move to now querying our table that has date columns, right? So let's say, let me first see the contact table only. Let's say we have a contact table where we have two columns, birth date and created on, which uses the different data type. One uses only date and one uses date and time. So now let's work on certain queries. So let's say you want to find out age of contacts, right, in years, or in any, actually not just on years. So we have a function called date difference. What does it take? It takes that date difference takes three parameters. First is the difference you want to calculate with the unit basically, then the first date and second date, right? So here we are calculating the difference in year, here we are calculating the difference in years, here we are calculating the difference in month, and here we are calculating the difference in days. So let me go ahead and run this. See here is this guy Ankit Sharma. He is 35 years old now, And the month equivalent is 422 and the days equivalent is I think 12,839. Right, so date difference is, so whenever you work on queries, date difference will be a very handful, predefined function that you will need. Now next, let's move to the next. Now not every time you need to bring all data of date column. On a certain place you may need just the portion of date, and then how to retrieve the part of date. Right. For example, we can use DATEPART function. Now with DATEPART function, again we'll have to specify what part of date we want: day, month, year, hour, right, and then the date. So if I go ahead and run this, it gives me this output which says here I am retrieving only year, here I am retrieving only month, here I am retrieving only day. See, 1990 over here, 5 over here month, and 10 over here, right? And here is an example of hour also. Now but this is based on the creation date. Let me bring over here created on date also, and let me go ahead and run this. Oh, my bad, I have typo over here. So let me go ahead and run this. So it gives me the hour also over here. See, it is 10, it is 14, it is 9. So similar way you can get minutes and second also, right? So this is an example of how you can retrieve a portion of a date, right? Now this next example, let's say retrieve date part another way, right? So here we use date part function, but to get day, month, and year, we have dedicated function called day, month, and year, right? And then the input of it would be the date, whatever date we wanna pass. So let me go ahead and run these. So over here we get contact name. This is created date on created day. This is the first one. Month is 12, year 2024, and this is again the hour time, right? So this is how you can, another way you can retrieve the portion of a date, right? Now let's move to next, formatting the dates. Now not necessary, as we say, the date are stored in these default formats. Let me just make a plain query on the table, right? So these are the default format where the dates are stored, and right. But not everywhere you need to display the date in similar manner only. You may see, we must have seen date displaying on various places on a various format. For example, if you see this date and time on right bottom of my laptop, then first the time is displayed, then the date is displayed, right? Let me go to any file. Let me just right click over here, go to property, and there we will have see dates. Over here see the dates, they are 28 April 2025. So it is not the YYMMDD kind of format. It is date, then the month name, then the year, then the time, right? So again a different format. Let me go to any news website. If I go to timesofindia.com, let's wait while it open. See the date time over here, Friday, June, Fry, basically June 04 2025. It has a different date format. It is displayed in different format. Now let me take one news example, and then we can, let me go to cricket section, and then we will open one article, and we will see the date of that article. There also we will see a different format. So see over here, it's June 04 2025 and 10:48 IST. So basically this article was written on so and so date and time, right? So we see different date formats. So now data stored in a table is in one format only, right? How to bring these different formats? So we have again inbuilt functions that helps us to retrieve data in different manner. For example, let's say if i run if I go ahead and run this query, so we have convert, we have date, we can use format, we can use date name. So let me go ahead and just run this query, and we'll see the example how dates are differently formatted. So this is the first birth date, right? The next one, this one, is actually this 10th May 1990. The next one is this one. See, this one has the forward slashes. The next one is this one. This one has the hyphen. The next one is this one, which is MMDDYY, right? MMDDYY. Then let's say we want just the month of a date, a portion. Then again we have used date part. Let me go out with this. Now if you want to retrieve the day name, then we will have to use format the date, whatever date from which we want to retrieve the day name, then 4 times d, small d, right? Then it will give us the day name. Similar way, if you want the month name, then 4 times capital M, and it will give us the month name. Now there is another way of retrieving day name and month also. For example, using date name function, if we specify it will give us day, right? Month, sorry, month, and so on. So there are a lot of options available. You can very get it very easily from the internet also. But you can pause this video, take an example from here, and practice this, so you will have an idea of how we can retrieve date in different formats, right, depending on our need, right? Now the next operation, next function, that is date add, right? Now we will often need date add function also. For example, let's say I want to figure out what is the birth date of my contact, when is the next birthday coming up. Obviously it will be after 1 year, but on which day it is coming, right? On which day it is coming. And also we want to also figure out the last year, on which day it was there. So here we are talking about the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, right? If I go ahead and run this, then it says that next year the birthday will fall on Friday. Previous year it was on Wednesday, right? So we can use date add, and to go in the past we'll have to use date add function, but with the negative value, right? Consider and take an example of how this could have been used in corona vaccine drive, right? So if you remember, while during the corona time we were given certain vaccines. That certain vaccine has a buffer period before the second doses, right? For example, these number are random only at this moment and not the accurate, but just consider these them. Let's say that someone has taken covaxin dosage on a particular day, then that guy is supposed to take the next dosage after 40 days only. At similar way, Covishield, it is after the 56th day only, right? So let's say I have taken my first dosage today, considering corona is still there, right? See, if I have taken this vaccine Covishield, and this is my first dosage date and time, right? Then when will be my next? So I have to add the 56 days into current date, and then that will give me the next dosage date, right? So basically I can go to second dose only after August, 29 August, right? So you have noticed this also. Even if you go to the government healthcare centers, where you go ahead and you don't know the date, right? They will let you know that you have taken the first doses on this and this date, and you will have to come after this date, right? So here they must have used the date add function, right? A real time example. And so hope you will have a good idea, about what different dates are, how you can how how you can use dates and display them in different formats, right? What are the predefined SQL functions that we can use while querying, right? So this will give you a good idea uh, on date data types and date data, right? Now let's take a very interesting use case scenario which many of us will have faced, right? And the scenario is, let's say we have stored the data into a database table that uses date and time data type, and on the UI we have only date selection, so we can only select date, not time, right? So what will happen in this case, if we are not using our date functions wisely, then it might result in a wrong result set. Let's take an example of it. So I have created one sales data table, and I have also created index that I'll explain later why I have used. And let me run this query. What do we have? Right. So we have this many data. Now let's say I want to retrieve data only for July 2025, right? So what we can do, we can use this month and year function, and we can compare that the month is 7 and the year is 2025 only. And if I go ahead and run this, then it will give me the 4 data of July month only, right? But over here, this approach is not performance perspective a good idea, because since we have used index on sales date time, and we are not using sales date time as a pure column name in our where query, this will not use actually our index, right? I'll show it in as we move ahead, right? But this is not a proper approach. What we should be doing, that I have written over here also, that we should always use between and end query, or greater than equal to or less than equal to query, right? So let's do that. So let me go over here. Yeah, okay. Now now this one, while using between and greater than equal to and less than equal to also, we should be little careful, because from the front end, let's say consider someone has selected that 1st of July 2025 and end date as 31st of July 2025. If I use between and end, and if I run this query, see what will happen. See, it is giving me only 2 records rather than 4. Let me go ahead and run this query again. So here we had 4 records for July month, and here it is giving me only 2 records for July month, right? Why? Because what usually happen when you are passing only date, it adds time, that is 0000.00, right? So our date will become something like this: 2025 07 31 00000000. So any date after this, even there is a 1 second gap, will be eliminated, right? Because it is not falling within our date range. So that is the reason we only see 2 records. Let me select all this. See, that is the reason we only see 2 records. And let's observe the records which got eliminated, right? These are the records which got eliminated, right? Why? Because they are falling on the 31st of July, and they have the date and time, particularly time, which is greater than 0000.000. Here we have 10 something, and then 23 59 59 999, right? So these 2 records are getting eliminated, right? So what do we do in this scenario, right? So in this scenario, what we should be doing is use the day after the end date, right? So if you have selected from date and to date, so to date, we should add 1 day in the to date, and then we should use that date in the query parameter. Let's take this example now. So let me comment out this, and let me take this. So here, let me explain this script. What we are doing, let's say we are receiving this as a from date and to date parameter. So what I am doing over here is, I am calculating one more date based on this to date, and I am adding 1 day over here, right? So, and again, this day will be, let me for a better explanation, let me take this first. Let's understand what this will give us, right? So if I go ahead and run this, so it gives me a 1 day ahead of the July, that is 1st of August, and it is taking time as 00000000 and 0, right? So obviously any date before to this will now be considered as a part of our query filter, right? And over here we have used at the day after to date as a to date, right? So if I go ahead and let me comment out this, otherwise it will disturb us in. If I go ahead and run this, right? So we have that 4 record using between and end, right? But using between and end, make sure you are using a day after the to date, right? Then only it will work. Otherwise it will give us the laser data, right? Now you must be wondering that we are having this query also, this is also giving 4 days, four accurate records, and this one is also giving accurate records. So what is the difference? you know so there are good chances that if you have created the index, then this query will use index, right? If you have created an index on cells date and time, that already we have did, right, while creating the table over here, right? Then while querying, let me run this and you will understand it better. So this will have used our index, right? Non-cluster index. See this. It will have used our index to retrieve the data. But if we go ahead and run this query, which uses month and year function, then if we go to execute, okay, let me get it refresh once. Let me just run these as of now. Okay. Okay, I think something is wrong over here. But ideally, if you are using a index that is wrapped within a function, right? If you are using an index column that is wrapped within a function, then the index will not work, right? So this approach will not use index effectively, while this one, this approach, which is between an and we are querying on the column itself, we are not we have not wrapped it around any function. So this will use the index approach, right? So I hope this give you a good idea what you should use and when, for the performance perspective, right? One more example is, ideally we can convert the date sales date time into a date, so that it takes every date into consideration. So if we have converted this date and time into date only, then it will eliminate the time while comparison, right? So if I go out and run this, it will give us those four records, right? 1 2 3 and 3 and 4, right? Why? Because it has chopped down the time, it is not considering time. Again, this is also not a better practice, because we have again used the function and we have used that indexed column within the function. Again, this should not use, actually. See over here, we can only see the cluster index that is created on order id column, because order id is our primary key, and here we don't see the non-clustered indexing, because the non-cluster index column is used within the function, not directly. If I go ahead and run this again, see what will happen. See over here, it is seeking from the index, and that is our non-cluster index, and that non-cluster index we have created on the cells date and time column, right? So I hope you have a fair idea now. So this is a very classic case when we have UI that only allows us to select dates, not time, and you still want to filter the records and display it, right? Then go with the between and end approach, but at the same time make sure you are taking a date, whatever two date coming from UI, you are taking one more greater than date. So basically one day after that date into your query consideration. So over here we have that is the reason we have calculated day after two date, and we have used that day after two date as two date in our query, right? So basically any timestamp, basically the last day and the hour, which is 23 minute 59 and second 59, up to that it will consider into this query, right? So record will be record having those kind of date will also be part of our query. So I hope this as I said, this will be a little longer video, I hope, but I have tried to cover as many things as a date data type and date data example would require. So if you like the video, if you feel you have learned something new today, subscribe to my channel, which is Learn Coding with Vinay-SQL for Developers. And thanks for watching this video, and see you in the next video. Thanks a lot, guys.